I stood in our kitchen that morning holding the jar like it was radioactive. Not because of what it was, but because I knew what it meant. It meant someone else had been here. Someone who liked peanut butter. Someone she bought groceries for. Someone that wasn't me. I placed it back exactly where I found it, top shelf, left corner, behind the honey. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and just stared at it. I don't even know for how long. She walked in 10 minutes later, barefoot, robe half-tied, scrolling on her phone. Didn't say good morning. Didn't notice my coffee had gone cold. Didn't see the look on my face. She opened the fridge, took out her oat milk, made a smoothie, still scrolling. She had no idea I'd seen it. No clue I'd noticed. The quiet clues, the second toothbrush in the bathroom drawer, the new playlist on her Spotify, the receipts in her purse from gas stations 2 towns over. But that peanut butter jar? That was the nail in the coffin because it didn't belong. Not in our house, not in her diet, not in our story. And when I asked her, just as calm as I could, "Hey, when did you start liking peanut butter?" She blinked, looked up at me like I'd spoken in a different language. Then she said, "What?" I nodded toward the cabinet. "Just saw a jar in there. Thought you hated the stuff." She stared at me a second too long, then shrugged. Must have grabbed it by accident. And just like that, it was over. Not the conversation, the marriage. Because I knew her. I knew she triple-checked every grocery list. I knew she once drove all the way back to Trader Joe's to exchange a bottle of sriracha because the label had a scratch. She didn't grab things by accident. She grabbed that for someone else. And she thought I wouldn't notice, or worse, she didn't care if I did. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just nodded. Then I watched her walk out of the kitchen, smoothie in hand, phone glowing, face blank. She never asked what I was doing home that day. Never noticed I was wearing the same shirt from yesterday. And as she walked away, I realized something. She hadn't said, "I love you," in weeks. She hadn't touched me in even longer. She hadn't even lied well. And that somehow made it worse, because if you're going to betray someone, at least care enough to cover your tracks. That night I couldn't sleep. I laid in the spare room staring at the ceiling fan spin in slow, lazy circles, listening to the hum of her white noise machine through the wall. I'd moved into that room 3 weeks earlier. Told her it was because I was snoring too loud. She just nodded and said, "Cool." Didn't even ask if something was wrong. Truth was, I couldn't stand being that close to her anymore. Not when her body was turned away from me every night. Not when she stopped reaching for my hand under the covers. Not when her silence felt heavier than the blankets. I thought maybe she'd knock on the door one night, maybe ask what was going on, maybe say something, anything, to remind me she still gave a damn. But nothing. She didn't even glance in that direction. And I started noticing more things. Things I didn't want to see, like how her phone never left her side. It used to sit charging on the kitchen counter while she cooked or left face up on the nightstand while she showered. Now she took it everywhere, into the bathroom, into the laundry room, even just out to check the mail. And God help me, I started watching her, not like spying or anything, just noticing. She'd be folding laundry and suddenly stop, smile at her phone, type something real quick, then keep folding like nothing happened. One time, I watched her put down a half-wet plate just to check a notification. That plate slipped from her hand and cracked in the sink. She didn't even react. It was like someone else was in the room with us, someone invisible. She used to sit with me during dinner, joke about coworkers or complain about emails. Now she ate in front of the TV with her AirPods in, watching shows I didn't recognize. I'd ask what she was watching and she'd shrug without pausing it. "I don't know, just something dumb." That was the entire conversation. One night, I finally asked, "Hey, is something going on with us?" She didn't look up from her laptop. "I'm just tired, Brandon." Then she got up and walked out of the room. That was it. No follow-up. No, we'll talk later. Just tired. I started walking the dog more longer and later each night just to clear my head, and that's when I noticed something weird. Our dog Rusty stopped sleeping by her side. He used to curl up at the foot of our bed every single night. Now he followed me to the spare room and scratched at the door until I let him in. He'd jump on the mattress and plop down with a little grunt, like he knew exactly where he belonged. Dogs are funny like that. They pick up on things. That same week, she had 2 girls' nights, which, okay, fine. She's allowed to have a life. But she didn't even change clothes after work, didn't touch her hair, didn't do makeup, just walked in the door, said, "I'll be out for a bit," and left again 20 minutes later. I waited both nights until almost midnight. She didn't text once. On Friday, I finally cracked. I waited until she went to bed and pulled up the phone bill on my laptop. We were still on the same plan. That was about to change. There it was, a number I didn't recognize, called nearly every single day, sometimes for just a few minutes, sometimes for almost an hour. Area code out of state, not somewhere she had family or friends. I stared at it for a long time, copy and pasted it into my own phone. I waited until the next day. I wanted to be sure she wasn't home. She said she had a hair appointment. I watched her leave. No purse, no keys to her old stylist salon. Just her phone. Always the damn phone. I waited a few minutes, then stepped outside and dialed the number. It rang once, then twice, then voicemail. A casual, friendly voice filled the line. "Hey, you've reached Kyle. Leave a message." I didn't. I just stood there in the driveway with the wind blowing in my ears and my stomach sinking like I'd swallowed a cinder block. Kyle. She'd mentioned to Kyle once, some guy from it who helped fix her work laptop months ago, and now she was calling him every day. That wasn't a coincidence. That was the crack in the wall I'd been pretending not to see. I ended the call, slid my phone into my pocket, looked back at our front door, the chipped paint, the faded welcome mat, the empty flower pot she hadn't refilled since May, and I thought, something's breaking, and I'm the only one pretending it isn't. That night, I didn't even try to talk to her. But I started planning. Because if I was right about Kyle, then the truth wasn't just around the corner. It was already sitting in our kitchen, eating cereal from my bowl, drinking coffee from my mug, smiling at my wife from the other side of the screen. I couldn't let it go. I wish I could say I was one of those guys who just walked away, packed a bag, moved down, started fresh. But I needed to know, not just guess, not just assume. I needed to hear it from her mouth or see it with my own eyes. Otherwise, it would haunt me. So, I started with the basics. I opened her company's website, scrolled through the staff directory, and there he was. Kyle R., IT department. Mid-20s by the look of his photo, smiling like someone who never skipped leg day. I sat back in my chair and stared at the screen. It felt weird, stalking some dude I'd never met. But what else was I supposed to do? I read his little bio. Problem solver, always down for a challenge. Proud dog dad. I bet he was. That his golden retriever had an Instagram too. I thought about calling him directly, but what would I even say? "Hey man, you banging my wife?" No, I needed something smarter. So I pulled up her company's number and called the front desk. A woman answered, chipper and professional. "Good afternoon, Spearson Logistics. This is Carla." I cleared my throat. "Hey, yeah, this is Sean from HR trying to confirm something about one of our guys in it, Kyle R." She didn't even blink. "One moment." A few clicks, some light hole music. Then, He picked up. "Hey, this is Kyle." That voice. It was light, friendly, a little higher than I expected. He sounded young, harmless. I made my voice casual. "Hey, Kyle, this is Sean from HR. Quick question. Did you clock in today? I've got a weird break room log here." "Oh, yeah," he said, laughing a little. "I've been here since 9 o'clock. Just saw Madison in the kitchen a few minutes ago. Actually, she was raiding the last granola bar." I froze. Madison. That was my wife. She told me she was off that day, said she was going shopping with her mom. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "Cool. Cool. Thanks, man. No problem." Click. I sat there in the silence of my living room staring at nothing. My hands were sweating. She lied flat out. I grabbed my phone, pulled up my contacts, and called her mom. "Hey, Brenda," I said, trying to keep my tone normal. "Just checking. Did Maddie come by today?" Her mom sounded confused. "No, I haven't seen her in weeks." "Why?" I almost said, "Never mind," but instead I just said, "Just curious. No big deal." We hung up. I didn't feel anger, not yet. It was more like something sinking, like watching a boat slowly take on water. You know what's coming. You just can't stop it. I needed more. I remembered that old iPad we had, one of those original ones I set up years ago before everything got smart. It barely held a charge, but I remembered syncing it to her iCloud account when she got her new phone. She never asked me to disconnect it. I charged it up and opened the location history. She'd turned off tracking on her new phone, but the old iPad still had access. It took a minute to load, but when it did, there it was. 2 pins. One was her work. The other was an apartment complex on the east side of town. I zoomed in, checked the address, looked it up, registered to Kyle R. She'd been there twice in the last 10 days. One of those days was a girls' night. The other was the day she went shopping with her mom. I didn't blow up. I didn't throw anything. I didn't cry. I just sat back on the couch with the iPad in my lap and let the weight of it settle in. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was fact. She was cheating, and she didn't even care enough to hide it. Well, I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour, maybe 2. I remember Rusty came and rested his head on my knee. You could probably sense it too. The shift. The rot. That night, she came home around 9 o'clock. She didn't look guilty, didn't seem nervous, just dropped her keys in the bowl and said, "Hey." I nodded. "Hey." She didn't ask what I was doing. Didn't ask why I was in the dark with an old iPad on the coffee table. She just grabbed a sparkling water from the fridge and went upstairs. The next morning, I woke up and something felt off. The house was quiet, but not in the usual way. Her phone, which she never left unattended, was on the nightstand, unlocked, just sitting there like a gift. I stared at it. Then I stared at her, still asleep, facing the wall. She wanted me to look. I don't know how I knew, but I did. It was an invitation. She was done lying, and maybe she wanted me to be the one to finally end it. She came downstairs around 8, still in pajamas, hair tied back, yawning like it was just another Saturday. She poured herself coffee, added that fancy oat milk creamer she liked, and leaned against the counter like nothing was wrong. I was sitting at the table, same seat as always, but with the old iPad right in front of me this time. Screen on, map open. She saw it. I know she did. But she didn't flinch. She just took a slow sip of her coffee, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "So, not?" What's that? Not. Why are you looking at my location? Not even a fake attempt to deny it. Just so. I stared at her for a few seconds, waiting, hoping something human would flicker across her face. A twitch, a frown, a hint of shame. But nothing. 2 nights ago, I said quietly, tapping the screen. You told me you were at Liz's. She nodded slowly. I did, but you weren't. Nope. And last week, you said you were out with your mom. She tilted her head like she was trying to remember. Oh yeah, you were at Kyle's both times. She took another sip, then set the mug down with a soft clink. Yes, I was. I swallowed hard. My chest felt tight, but my hands were steady. How long? She shrugged. Long enough. That answer hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't even the words. It was the way she said them, like she was reciting the weather report. I took a breath. Do you love him? She looked at me for the first time with something that might have been pity. It's not about that. That made my skin crawl. What is it about then? She didn't answer, just picked up her mug again and walked over to the fridge like we were discussing groceries. I stared at her back. The same hoodie she'd stolen from me 2 winters ago. She still wore it to bed sometimes. I used to think it meant something. Do you want a divorce? I asked. She turned, leaned against the fridge and crossed her arms. If that's what you want. I blinked. I didn't ask what I want. Well, she said, exhaling through her nose. It's not working. We both know that. So you've just been waiting for me to figure it out. She didn't say anything. That silence was louder than any answer. I nodded slowly. Okay. I got up, walked past her, and headed upstairs to the spare room. Took about 10 minutes to throw some clothes into a duffel. I didn't bother folding anything. Didn't pack my charger. I just needed to move. Halfway through zipping the bag, I heard her voice from downstairs. Laughter. Not polite chuckling, not a sitcom in the background kind of noise. Real open laughter. I paused, walked down the stairs, slow, careful, barefoot. She was still in the kitchen, back turned, phone in one hand, smiling like she'd just heard the funniest thing all week. Yeah, she said into the phone, voice light, flirty. He figured it out this morning. Pause. She laughed again, a deep belly laugh like none of this mattered. Like I wasn't 10 feet away with a packed bag and a cracked heart. I didn't say a word, just stood there in the hallway listening. She didn't even lower her voice. Kyle, she said, drawing his name out like a secret. It's fine. I'll call you later, okay? When she turned and saw me standing there, she didn't flinch, didn't apologize. She looked at me like I was intruding. Something else you need? She asked, tone flat. No, I said. I'm good. She nodded once. Okay, that was it. No tears, no fight, no regret. Like I was the one who cheated. Like I was the one who should feel ashamed for finding out. I grabbed my bag, walked past her, and headed for the door. Right before I stepped outside, I looked back one more time. She was already scrolling again. Already somewhere else. I didn't slam the door. Didn't say goodbye. I just closed it. Soft, I crashed at my brother's place that first night. Pulled into his driveway just after 10 o'clock. Called him from the car. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Front door's unlocked," and hung up. Nate's house smelled like diapers and fried rice. His youngest was teething and his wife was up to her elbows in formula and laundry, but somehow they made space. He tossed a blanket on the couch and gave me that look, the one that says, "You don't have to talk, but I'm here if you do." I didn't talk. Not that night. For the next week, I barely left their guest bathroom. Shaved my beard down to stubble, bought a cheap toothbrush from the gas station. Didn't answer texts unless they were from work. I kept telling myself I was just buying time, getting my head right, figuring out logistics. But the truth was simpler. I had no clue what to do next. Madison texted me once, not to apologize, not to check in, just a short message. "Hey, the electric bill came in. I think it's under your name." That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, are you okay? Just a casual reminder that I was still on the hook for things. I didn't answer. A couple days later, my sister-in-law ran into her at a bar downtown, one of those rooftop spots with overpriced cocktails and mood lighting. She said Madison was laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. Hair curled, nails done, drink in hand. Looked weirdly happy, she said. I didn't respond to that either, just nodded and went back to doing dishes. That following Monday, I filed for divorce. No kids, no house, no real assets, just a lease and a bunch of furniture I didn't want anymore. My brother drove me to the courthouse and waited in the parking lot while I filled out the paperwork. The lady behind the glass didn't even blink when I slid the forms across the counter. "Contested or uncontested?" she asked. I almost laughed. She doesn't even care enough to contest it. That night, I candled every joint account, changed passwords, called the landlord, and let him know I was off the lease by the end of the month. It was easier than I thought it would be. Like removing my name from a party I wasn't invited to in the first place. I even killed the Netflix. Petty, maybe. But it felt good. A clean break, one app at a time. I kept thinking I'd have some kind of emotional crash, that there'd be this big messy breakdown where I'd cry in my car, or scream into a pillow, or get drunk alone on the floor. But it never happened. I just felt lighter, like I'd been holding my breath for months and finally let it out. One night, about 2 weeks after I moved out, I drove past our old apartment. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Habit. The lights were off. Her car wasn't there. I thought I'd feel something. Regret, maybe anger, nostalgia. But all I felt was nothing. I pulled into a gas station, bought a Sharpie and a pack of gum on the back of an old receipt. I scribbled a quick note, folded it twice, drove back, slipped it into the glove box of her car. "Thanks for making it easy." Didn't sign it. Didn't need to. She never responded. Not with a text, not with a call. I don't even know if she found it. Didn't matter. By the time my divorce papers were officially stamped and mailed out, I had stopped checking my inbox for her name. But then, about a month later, I heard something. Nate was scrolling through Facebook when he stopped and raised an eyebrow. "Dude," he said, holding out the phone. "You're not going to believe this." There was Kyle in a suit standing next to a girl in a white dress. Not Madison, his high school sweetheart, apparently. They'd reconnected, moved fast, engaged, married within 8 weeks. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not out of jealousy, not even anger. Just disbelief. All that destruction. All that silence. All that sneaking around for this. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a drink, and sat outside on the back steps while the sun dipped behind the trees. Rusty sat next to me, tail thumping against the wood. "I thought I'd feel broken," I said out loud. But I didn't. I felt free. The kind of free you only get after someone stops pretending to love you. The divorce papers came back from the county clerk's office, sealed and official. I stared at the envelope for a long time before I opened it, just sitting in my truck outside the gym, fingers drumming on the steering wheel. The final stamp, the end of something that had already died long before lawyers got involved. Then I had an idea. I drove straight to her office, not to see her. I had no interest in that. I just wanted the address. I knew Kyle worked there too. Same building, same company. Perfect. I resealed the papers, printed out a new envelope, and wrote her office address on it. Attention, Kyle R. I slipped the stack inside and attached a bright yellow post-it to the front that read, "You forgot to sign these again." I didn't care if he opened it first or handed it off to her. Either way, the message would land. Let them explain it to each other. Let them wonder if I knew more than I did. Let them squirm in that weird silence people pretend isn't awkward. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a tantrum. It was a nudge. A reminder that I could be quiet too, but not forgettable. That week, my buddy Eric offered me a job at the gym he managed. Said they needed someone part-time to help with equipment and evening check-ins. I took it. Not for the money. I still had my landscaping gig, but I liked the structure, the routine, the fact that nobody there knew what had happened. He also hooked me up with a free membership, said I looked like I needed it. I did. Working out wasn't about revenge, not really. But I'll be honest, it felt good when people noticed. When they said, "Damn, Brandon, you're looking different lately." I smiled more, slept better, ate real food. I even bought new clothes, nothing fancy, just shirts that fit and jeans that didn't sag like I'd been dragging myself around for a year. A month later, I ran into one of Madison's friends at Target, Jules or Julie, something like that. She was pushing a cart with a toddler in it, and I barely recognized her behind the big sunglasses. She, however, recognized me instantly. "Oh my God," she said, blinking like I was a ghost. "Brandon?" I nodded. "Hey," she stared. "Wow, you look different." I just shrugged. Yeah, been making some changes. We made awkward small talk for maybe 30 seconds. Then she leaned in a little too close and whispered, "So, you doing okay?" I smiled. Never better. She looked at me like that answer confused her, like it didn't fit the narrative she'd been told. I left her standing in the soap aisle, pretending to look at shampoo. A few days later, I parked across the street from Madison's office building around lunch hour. I didn't go in, didn't even get out of the car, just waited until I saw her through the glass doors. She came out with two other women. One of them pointed at something in the parking lot, and Madison turned her head and spotted me. I was leaning against my truck, sipping coffee, and I wasn't alone. The girl next to me, Tasha, a friend of a friend, wasn't anyone serious, but she had a smile that could light up a city block and enough confidence to carry both of us. She leaned into me just enough to make it clear we were close. I didn't wave, didn't smile, just met Madison's eyes for a split second, then turned and said something that made Tasha laugh. We drove off 2 minutes later. That was the game. No confrontation, no drama. Just existence. Quiet. Clean. Undeniable. The text started again after that. Nothing crazy, just polite attempts at reconnection. "Hope you're okay. We should talk sometime. Closure, maybe. Been thinking about you." I left every single one on read. And let me tell you, nothing says I'm doing just fine without you like giving someone the silence they once gave you. Then came the last message. Short, simple, brutally honest. "I made a mistake." I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to hurt her, Not because I had some big speech prepared about betrayal or karma, but because I no longer needed her to know anything. I had peace. And you don't explain peace. You just live it. I hadn't spoken to Madison in 6 months. Not a text, not a call, not even an accidental double tap on one of her old photos. It was like the version of me that used to chase her attention didn't exist anymore. A mutual friend told me she moved to another city, got a new job somewhere in Charlotte, I think. Still single, probably telling her side of the story with all the right edits. The kind that make her sound like the victim and me like a shadow in the background. Letter. I was living a different story now. I was dating someone new. Her name's Amber. We met at the gym of all places. She bumped into me in the smoothie line and laughed at my shirt, said it looked like I'd stolen it off a clearance rack from 2008. She wasn't wrong. She's kind, honest, doesn't play games. She asks questions and actually listens to the answers. She laughs at my dumb jokes, the ones that used to make Madison roll her eyes. And when I told her everything, not the censored version, but the messy truth, she didn't flinch. She just sat there, nodded, and said her loss. That was the moment I realized I was finally done carrying it all. The guilt, the doubt, the weight of someone else's silence. I've been holding on to pieces that didn't even belong to me anymore. Some nights I drive past the old apartment, not on purpose, it's just on the way to the freeway. The building looks smaller than I remember. The porch light still flickers. That flower pot's still empty, but I don't feel anything when I see it. No sting, no ache, just a dull recognition, like passing your old high school years later. It's funny though, I still remember that morning. The peanut butter jar. The way she looked right through me. That little smile at her phone. It used to feel like the moment everything broke. But now I see it as the moment I woke up. She gave me silence. Cold, steady, intentional. So I gave it back. Not as a weapon, but as a boundary, and I kept it forever. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can say to someone is nothing at all. So yeah, that's my story. I didn't get revenge. I didn't burn her stuff or key her car or post some big expose online. I just moved on quietly, fully. And maybe that's the best kind of ending. The kind where you stop needing closure from someone else because you already gave it to yourself. If you've ever walked away from someone who made you feel invisible, or if you've ever had that one small moment that told you everything you needed to know, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions, where the quietest voices tell the loudest truths. Until next time, take care of yourself.